guys, MasakoX here. Now, this video is a little bit more of a rambling sort of thing. It's unscripted, a little bit more long form, but I think I tried to write a proper script for this video, but it didn't feel right to me because, ironically, writing scripts for these what ifs is what I do. So to write a script for this one, I don't know, it was weird. It didn't really feel genuine. So to speak from the heart and actually provide you some good advice here, I'm pretty much going to be off the cuff. So it might be a little bit more of a windly-windly sort of thing, but trust me, there is a point to it. There will be a point to this. At the end of the day, this is something that I really wanted to share. And I know that some of you might be going, well, wait, Masako, you've sort of done this sort of video already. And yes, you are right. I did do a video about what if I taught you how to what if, and not many people watched it because YouTube being YouTube. But then again, I did look back at that video and it was quite formal, and it's also now a little dated. My style's sort of changed, but this video is more of a personal and more from the heart interpretation. But I suppose the main inspiration for me wanting to do this video came from, ironically, a tweet, not a YouTube video. But this tweet was an exchange between Gohan and Videl by the Twitter user Kairai, or a Karai, or something like that. Anyway, that's besides the point, the handle's here. The content, though, struck a chord, and it really explores things which are so true and on point to the undertones of that relationship and plot. And it's something I wish to do with my stories in some shape or form. Because when you really drill down into the content of that 4 pages, it's just a talk between Great Saiyaman and Great Saiyaman 2, Gohan and Videl on duty, and it's actually really heartwarming, and it's something they probably did discuss, but just off camera, because, you know, Toriyama's not really that good at writing relationships, and I don't think that would have really occurred to him, nor would it have been really funny. And I'm actually sort of glad that didn't happen, because if it did, it would have been played for laughs, or it wouldn't have really hit home as well as it could have done. It would have fallen flat, or it would have required another Toei or Shueisha writer to help fill in the gaps, and then Toriyama would have just gone on with his day. It really did make a good point, and it would understand why Gohan wouldn't want to have to applaud it. So, Karai, you really did a good job there. I mean, I'm so pleased that more people could have seen it. I did sort of cover this in my What If Gohan Was Earth's Hero back in the day, but now looking back on it, it was a little diluted, and also rather limited with what you can put in a 15-minute video, and despite the comic itself being 4 pages, but that one exchange alone was more than enough to get the point across. Yeah, that is one of the problems of doing what if videos. There is only so much you can cover because, yeah, I know that some people want me to do like 20, 25, 30-minute videos, but at the same time, longer videos don't necessarily do that well on YouTube. 15 minutes is the sweet spot, in my opinion. I might go closer to 20 if it's a really strong story like with Gine or Freeza Turned Good, but I try and keep it closer to 15, maybe sometimes 13. It depends on what people really want, and judging on the audience retention of around about 60%, which is about 9-10 minutes, I'm not that far off, and that's the average, so I'm really pleased about that. But going back to writing Freeza Turned Good, it's actually been one of those stories which has been a turning point in my road to what-ifery. Quite frankly, the reason for that is because I really didn't want to do it for the longest time. It, in my mind, was an impossible situation that I really struggled to try and make somewhat plausible. I mean, the what if Frieza listened to Goku thing was a good stopgap. It didn't get rid of the whole thing that Frieza was a bad guy. He still was, but it just made him think about things a little more than he would have done in the original story. You know, the whole you fool thing didn't really happen the same way it did. But, no, it wasn't quite as far as Freeza turning good. And a lot of people were just really resistant to the idea. I know some of you may think it's just me bragging that, oh, look at me, I managed to make a story, la-di-da-di-da. But I'm really proud of this because it's something that was just conjured up and it's now its own thing. And reading the comments now to what I was reading 6 months ago, it's just such a stark change. And how people are actually saying, to hiffle with the Android Saga, give me more of that story. I'm like, that's a big deal because the Android Saga is a big story. But why did I decide to actually do it? Well, I was actually honestly around the time of Christmas 2019 not really doing so well because the views were starting to go down, and yes, granted, because there's no Dragon Ball Super, not even Dragon Ball Super Broly, a movie around to help boost up the numbers, but I was really struggling to get a grip on something new for around the Christmas period, because I did do the year before, What If Vegeta Learned to Like Christmas? And that was a nice little story, but it wasn't quite what people really wanted. So I thought, well, let's have a Christmas miracle in some way. I wanted to do something daring, so what better thing to do than the story I really didn't want to do? And I felt that after 2 years of doing this type of thing, that I had the ability to at least do this story somewhat justice. It wouldn't be terrible. But it all comes down to the fact of that you need to try and understand the character, and this is partly how you could write some good stories for yourself. This was a journey I am sharing with you. How can you make Freeza turn good and make it realistic and logical? And, like I said, you need to understand the character, in this case, Freeza. Freeza isn't necessarily the worst of the worst, totally irredeemable. He does have good positive discourse, and he can respect people, even more so when he gets older, but there needs to be a plausible way in which for him to actually do some soul searching and actually think introspectively. Because, really, day to day, in the original story, he doesn't need to. He's the Emperor of Universe 7. Who's gonna stop him? In order for Freeza to change and grow into something else, he needs it all stripped away. And the only way that that can happen is if Daddy doesn't like what he's doing. So if one day King Cold decided that enough was enough and Freeza was a shambles and didn't deserve to be Emperor anymore, then he could just take it away. He is technically stronger than Freeza, so he does have the upper hand there. And also I think Freeza would be just totally and utterly surprised and broken that his own father would want to get rid of him. You need to think about what makes a character who they are. Haverok and I have worked on these together, and over the last 3 years we've really melded our styles together and we've produced tons of stories that we're really proud of. Some of our ideas and plots are derived from both of our ideas and observations from the Roundtable live streams every week, which means that in some way these plots and videos are grown from you, the community, and that's something I'm really proud of. It gets people talking, it gets people thinking about how these stories can happen. You just pose a question and boom, you're off to the races. You could just think, wow, that's something that never really occurred to me. But what can I offer you right now, the viewer? I get emails consistently about asking how to write stories or to read scripts. And as much as I would like to read every script cover to cover that I get, it's hard to do with work on various platforms, as well as now raising a little puppy. By the way, this is Uffa, a bearded collie, and she's absolutely adorable, an incredible smart bean, and she does have an Instagram, by the way, if you want to check out more of her images. If you're only going to take one tip away from all of this, it should be this. Don't necessarily do the obvious, or what the fan base has wanted for the longest time. It probably just ticks the boxes, adds a little bit of lemon in there, because Dragon Ball isn't really much of a lemony product or franchise. I mean, yes, Android 21 is quite lemony, and that actually makes me feel very uncomfortable. So it has a time and a place for it. But okay, how do you inspire and innovate? How do you get people thinking? Well, if that is a little bit hard for you right now, then it is okay to tackle a more obvious scenario. But if you are going to do it, try and add your own spin on it. Like, you take a look at a question and you think, well, okay, how do we get to that point? It's almost, in a way, the beginning of a story, but it's also the end point. You need to think, how are our characters going to get from a point minus Z to A and then go to B, C, D onwards? It's a little tricky, but you can change it up in some way. Say, for example, it's all to do about where Goku lands on planet Earth. It could easily change. If there was a delay in the course in getting to planet Earth, then it could have easily been somewhere else, like Capsule Corp, or maybe Kame House. There are so many things that could easily change, and a lot of people really want me to do an idea about what if Goku and Raditz landed on Earth together, and it is a nice little story, but a lot of people tend to think that, oh, Raditz would just blow up the planet because that's what he's been trained to do. But then you need to actually stop and think, well, wait a minute, would Raditz really do that? Yeah, granted, his parents are no longer around, but his baby brother Kakarot is, and is completely malleable. They are no longer around where Saiyans or Frieza are. He can actually do what he wants. He is a cautious type of Saiyan. So, he's now here, he's nowhere near Frieza's influence. They could just destroy the Scouter and go about their business. They could start a new life. that would very much appeal to Raditz' sense of risk aversion. And also, hey, you can throw in a bit of Gurren Lagann and have a Shimon Kamin relationship there. You know, Raditz being the cool, inspirational older brother. So there you go, we just thought of something right there. But if you do think of your own what-if idea or story, don't claim it as your own. And nobody else can do it. I can't do that because there are people that have come up with these stories before, like Broku72 with What If Krillin Was a Saiyan? That's his own story. That's fair enough. That's his own interpretation. I am just presenting my own interpretation, and then you can do the same yourself. Because if you stake a claim on a what if and you don't allow people to do it, that's not the point of doing this. Each scenario pitched is totally different because everybody is different. No two stories are utterly identical, and if they are, then, you know, you straight up copied something. And if people aren't satisfied with one of my stories, then I strongly encourage you to come up with your own interpretation. That is the idea of whatevery, my friends, to inspire storytelling and to get people thinking in a fresh way for a franchise which has actually been around for 35 years, coming up on 40. Okay, I hope this has helped you in some way come up with stories. Now it's actually telling the stories. Yes, you can write it down, you can put it up on fanfiction.net or any personal blog or social media platform that you have, but if you want to tell the story yourself, wholly and authentically what you came up with, then you need to be confident either on camera or talking into a microphone, whatever you prefer. One of my more recent inspirations, and something that you might have seen happening in the last few months, is my change in interpretations and storytelling conveyance, taking it slower. That came from a guy called Jason Buck. He does a lot of fantastic live readings and more recently live streams, given the present situation around the planet, of Norse stories, Norse legends, dragons, all of this stuff. More recently, one about Beowulf, which was absolutely fantastic. And if you want to listen to some of his orations yourself, he does have a YouTube channel. I'll link it up top. It's seriously worth your time. Now, do you do voices? Do you not do voices? Well, it depends on what you can do or what you feel comfortable with. You don't have to. You can just read the story as is and not do any voices. Totally okay. That's up to you. And yes, some of you may feel that I succumb to the TFS jokes for some characters in some of my stories, and yes, that is true for some of the sake of a shtick and in the discussion, but I am trying to veer away from that in my more recent scripts. And that includes R&R. For example, episode 4 of R&R and Dragon Shorts episode 4. Both have the same outcome in that Yamcha has a somewhat positive ending, but the way it gets there feels rather different. For example, in R&R, Yamcha chooses to lose his final game because he realizes he has nothing left to prove, and that he has control of his own destiny. He then gets to keep loving baseball by training the new generation with a Little League class. And he even gets to get the girl a relationship, and bonus round, he and Bulma have a healthy friendship given their history. It's a case of them being happy for one another, and they get to deserve it. There is a path to happiness for Yamcha. You just need to find the right and tasteful way to do it. Something to do with baseball ideally, because even though he is way overpowered for other people, he loves doing it. So don't just get rid of it. Make him train the next generation because he gets to be a master. But it's a master of his own destiny and in something he has a passion for. And as for adding an OC, well, I mean, I did that. Yeah, you can too, but you gotta be careful. Make their backstory logical and something that feels realistic within the dragon world. We don't like it in the main show when a new guy or a new type of species comes in and it feels forced, so don't fall for that same gimmick too. Because yeah, like for example with Tarbell, I mean, it's all very well and good we get to see the younger brother of Vegeta, but after maybe about 10 or 20 minutes of being in the OVA, he doesn't really do anything, so it was a wasted opportunity. Don't fall for the same thing. Either way, I hope this has helped you in some way, give you an idea on how to start telling stories, and if you have any more further questions, then do leave it down in the comments and I will do my best to try and respond to it. But either way, I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with and just really having a strong sense of accomplishment and satisfaction that you can contribute yourself to the world of Dragon Ball. I hope you're all having a good day, everyone. Take care, and until next time, I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!